I'm Gnosis, and I'm in Portland, Oregon. I've been homeless for about 2.5 years. I don't like it very much. I don't want to be homeless, but I'm kind of stuck there. It's easy to stay homeless here. You can be homeless for decades here just fine, but in terms of getting anywhere, it's just as hard as it is anywhere else.
My name is Glen Dunzweiler. I live in Southern California. This is my home. When it looked like I may lose my home, and I realized there was a chance I could become homeless, instead of just waiting to see what would happen, I decided to put my energies into finding out what it was to be homeless in this country. I drove to different cities, interviewing both homeless people and homeless service providers, all the while sleeping in my car or sleeping on friends' couches, and taking showers at my gym. After all, to be homeless, I thought you had to be addicted to drugs or mentally ill. I am neither. What is going on? My mind would be bent every day for 4 months.
When I was working at the Bakersfield Rescue Mission, there were men that had jobs, white-collar jobs with $1 million homes that were coming through that mission, still carrying their briefcases and their $500 shoes, that were looking for a bed because they lost everything. The only reason they had a car is because they hadn't found it to repo it yet. And I mean, it's this way across the nation. I've been across the nation, and it's the same everywhere you go. And the numbers are increasing in mind-boggling amounts.
When I first started researching homelessness, I was drawn to the subject of the new homeless. These were professionals who had lost their homes due to job loss.
Hi, my name is Ray Jansen, and according to the scope of this project, I am one of the new homeless.
Meeting Ray was a happy accident. I just happened to run into him in the Comfort Inn parking lot. I had no idea he was homeless. After some small talk, I asked him where he lived, and he pointed at his room.
I was working out of an office. The recession hit, and at the end of 2009, I found myself living in my office, having not paid rent for a year.
Eventually, Ray negotiated a deal where he worked for the Comfort Inn in return for room and board.
This kind of a position allowed me a roof over my head. I have one meal a day, it's all good. And from there, it's a springboard.
Ray impressed me because in my mind, this industrious guy shouldn't be homeless. What I would find is that Ray was just my intro into a world where no one should be homeless, and most people were new to it.
I'm Randall. Hi. How are you? We're talking about homelessness, and the truth is that the homeless population comes in all sizes, shapes, colors, origins, experiences, and so forth. And there are no limits to the stories. And when you find out about a homeless person, basically you're learning about the diversity of homeless people.
Well, homeless people didn't come from a homeless farm. They came from parents. And so what happened to that individual? And what happened to that family? And what happened to those children?
Me and my parents had a little falling out, and that led to them kicking me out. I couch surfed for about 1.5 years, the last part of my senior year, and now I'm out here struggling among Portland's homeless.
A year ago, me and my husband got laid off. And we had our apartment for about a month afterwards, and then the whole proceedings happened where, well, you have to get out. Sorry, you're lost, but business is business. So we pretty much went from friends to a hotel to after everything ran out and we exhausted everything. We were blessed enough to get a room here.
I was working at a warehouse, and I have a girlfriend. We were together, and we ended up having 2 kids. She moved out, and when she moved out, she left me there by myself in an apartment that I couldn't pay for. We had a deal that I would watch the kids on the weekend, and so she brings the kids over, and she never comes back. I'm supposed to be at work. They gave me some days, like a ultimatum pretty much, to either come in 3 days or I would lose my job.
Like I said, we had the death of our son, and that took a toll on us. And then I got injured at work and wasn't able to work. And my wife lost her 2 jobs. And that put us in a predicament where we was going to lose our home. It was just a matter of time.
I'm here because I can't afford to live in a normal house. I gotta live in a tent. My wife's disabled, I gotta be separated from her. I can't leave her anywhere, so she's off living somewhere else. I can't afford no housing to keep my family together because the economy's so much and the rent won't go down.
These are just some of the stories I heard. All said, I interviewed about 50 homeless people and about 25 service providers and advocates around the country. Everyone's experience was personal and unique. I tried to weave their words into similar topics. Some opinions differ, and I asked that you be objective and realize that the villain in this story is not one person or group. The villain is homelessness.
My name is Tony Sipich. I'm founder of Homeless Helpers of Las Vegas. We are a charity that feeds directly on the streets to the homeless men, women, children in the downtown area of Las Vegas, also referred to as the homeless corridor. And we're starting to see a lot of faces that 5 years ago you normally wouldn't see, which is the faces of my neighbors, people that I'm used to seeing. I actually ended up feeding an old roommate of mine one day out of nowhere, so it kind of hit home for me because I used to live with this guy. The families are what's scary because we're seeing men, women, children out here, their first time ever homeless, actually their first time some of them ever seeing this part of town. And so they're not knowledge of the system, and unfortunately, like any system, you've got to kind of know it to be able to take advantage of it. So we try to be the stopgap for those people who otherwise would have spent a couple of weeks, their first few weeks homeless, trying to figure out where the services are. So we're able to direct them because we are on the front lines. We're able to direct them where the help is. If the statistics across America are anything like it is in Las Vegas, 1 in 4 homeless are veterans. So as an American, you almost have an obligation when these guys get back to serve them because they served us.
Homeless service providers are very busy, and homeless people are rightfully very guarded when it comes to a stranger coming up to them with a camera. One of these guarded people was a friend of a friend I had met in LA. He wanted to talk more about economics than his broken foot and months of homelessness. I found that I needed to study up before I could even sit down with him.
How's it going? My name is Jim Bob. I have been homeless for now about 7 months. The government is spending money on programs to enhance or increase, but it doesn't trickle down. Sure, we're bailing out a company, but the company's not hiring because they have no incentive to do so. They're gonna go, okay, well, my lifestyle is worth more than the expansion of my business. I mean, this country is about yourself, not others. So I'm not going to hire anybody else. Screw everybody else. You have to let people fail. Your baby is learning how to walk. If every time your baby's about to fall on its bottom, you're stopping it and holding it, the baby's never going to learn how to fall. Sometimes you gotta let that baby fall. Sure, you're gonna have 20, 30, or 40,000 people out of work, but you're gonna be able to extend unemployment benefits because you didn't spend those billions of dollars that went into that company. It's not an investment into the country that is happening. It's an investment into private industries to keep them maintaining. I know that right now I'm failing, and it's not because I haven't tried. And it's not because of my lack of abilities. I am failing right now because of the decisions of other people. I'm failing right now because there isn't a pool of money to allow companies to hire somebody like me at what I'm worth. I mean, I'm not looking for a handout. I don't want a handout. I'm asking for a job. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for the ability to work. Look, man, I'm in America, and I've lived in other countries. I know what other opportunities are. This is the greatest country in the world. There is more opportunity that is possible here than anywhere else. Due to economic circumstances and the choice of the American people, this is the new face of homelessness.
In order to better understand what it was to be homeless, I planned on sleeping in my car as I went out across the country. This would turn out to be an invaluable learning experience, as every night out, I would learn a little more about the stress of having no home.
So you're gonna sleep in there?
Yeah.
It looks crowded.
I am excited, but I am going to miss my wife. Bye.
You know, I think Americans are kind of like tired of hearing about the problem of homelessness. I think the majority of Americans feel guilty. I think Americans want to hear that we're addressing the problem, that the agencies that serve the homeless are actually helping people to get out of homelessness, and that everybody should be working together towards solutions. And it's not going to happen overnight. And it seems like we've grown accustomed to homeless people living on our streets. And the typical American, we walk by homeless people each and every day without doing anything, and I think that's unacceptable, because we are never going to solve homelessness through acts of mercy, acts of charity, acts of kindness. We need the business sector involved. We need city, county, state involved. We need the money from the government. We don't want the governments to run our programs, but we want them to kind of give us the resources that we need. And we've been trying to address this issue without adequate resources, and that's why we have so many visible homeless people on our streets here in Washington and also nationwide.
When I got to Denver, I had contacts with two organizations, the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless and the Denver Rescue Mission. Both helped me find interviewees and showed me what they do. Denver's shelter systems are impressive, but the providers were quick to point out that it wasn't enough. The demand was still overrunning the supply. So I got to Denver about 20 minutes ago. Wish I had a bed just to flop in.
Nearly half of the nation's homeless are unsheltered, not because they want to be, but there's not even enough shelter beds for our nation's homeless.
The single women always had to go to the back of the line. So if you didn't have your family there with you with children, you were at the back of the line, and when they totally filled up, that was it.
And there's not really many shelters for couples, so we kind of are stuck out here because we don't want to separate.
If you're not a female who's pregnant, has been abused, if you're not mentally unstable, a drug addict, dying of cancer, whatever it may be, it's almost possible to get real help. It's like they don't want to help you until you're beyond help.
The reason why I was able to get into these two programs, and I basically had to convince them, is because my dad's a recovery alcoholic. He's been clean for over 20 years. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to get into any of these programs.
There are homeless shelters in San Francisco that use a lottery system. If your number is called, you will get a bed for the night.
That day when I went, we won a lotto. They gave a lotto out and a number, and our number came up. Our number was the number, and I cried, because if I hadn't won that, myself and my son would have still been out in the streets with no money.
What I was told when I came in was you have 2 weeks because you're a single woman. If you can get these things done within that time, then you can possibly stay up to 2 months.
The city spends almost $25,000 a year keeping somebody in shelter, where supportive housing costs something like $13,000 a year. Because New York City has a right to shelter, if there's no room at the shelter, the city has to contract with landlords to house families and individuals, and oftentimes they pay up to $200 a night to house somebody in an apartment owned by a private landlord.
It's much, much cheaper to help people get the services they need than to maintain them in shelters and on the streets.
I found this program called the Colorado Coalition, and I was able to get an interview, and I think that's what changed my life.
We can help them connect to city systems. We can help them with advocacy. We can help them understand themselves. They can learn to trust God.
But right now, there's neither the money or the will to produce the tens of thousands of hotel rooms or single resident occupancies, SROs, that are necessary to deal with the vast numbers of people who are sleeping on the ground every night.
Well, I spent the first night in my car successfully. I did not get arrested. I spent the second night in my car. It was a better night. I did, however, sleep on my one shirt I was trying to keep not wrinkled. I had 2 interviews yesterday, and I drag around a huge production bag, and I'm starting to screw up my lower back.
I went to the doctor, got a biopsy, and I was diagnosed with stage 3 cervical cancer.
As a diabetic, I would be scared shitless to walk into a county hospital. I mean, my primary care physician knows my situation and makes sure that I have the diabetes medicine given to me for free as samples.
I was bitten by a tick carrying Lyme disease, and it totally changed my life. I was incapacitated for about 1.5 years, literally at one point paralyzed from it. At that time, I was working for the head of a studio in the movie business, and after 1.5 years, they had to replace me. I just couldn't go back to that kind of work. I wasn't strong enough, and so I became an in-home caregiver for elderly people. In 2004, I had just reached my capacity to endure it and opted to find out what else was available. And I literally slept on cardboard on a main street here in Santa Monica and was told about this good place, St. Joseph Center.
I got a job, and it was my first job back in almost 1 year. And the job required me from going door to door and out in the field, and the week of my training, I break my foot.
Okay, well, my name is Paul, and I have 2 boys. Paul Jr., he's 11, and Tristan, he's 5, and he's autistic. He gets kicked out of the library because he shut the light off. One person went in there one time and turned the lights on, so then he discovered he could shut them off. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
He's going to keep shutting it off now.
Cool. You know what?
My son likes playing with lights. Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah. You're fine.
Nice. Bright lights, huh, Tristan?
My youngest son got heat stroke just walking 3 blocks, and I kept Gatorade with me. I kept water with me. We always were hydrated.
I get off at the corner, try to walk a whole corner. I have to stop in the middle, and we sit down and rest so my feet can feel a little better. Then I can start walking again. A lot of them know I'm sick with the strokes, heart attacks, high blood pressure, and like I said, I'm getting PAD in my legs.
It's a bacteria that gets in your blood, and it affects something called the synovial fluid, any place we bend, any joint, and it pushes on nerves, and the pain is excruciating. And that kind of took away my good part of life, you know, and it's agonizing. The pain is excruciating. I can't even tell you. It can kill you. It can leave you with encephalitis, or in my case, an arthritic thumb. I'll take the arthritic thumb any day. Who expected a tick so little you can't even see them?
As I was leaving Denver, I began to realize the importance of laundry facilities and clean clothes. I've ruined my shirt. It's all wrinkly, so I gotta get that. Man, my jeans, I just been sweating in them for 3 days, and I gotta clean them up. I had to look my best for these interviews. The people I met were somewhat suspect of me, mainly because they were worried about being judged by the media. That kind of came to a head in Kansas City.
1601 Elizabethan Poor Laws, we define people as worthy poor or unworthy poor. Worthy poor were defined as people who could not necessarily be held accountable for their circumstances. Everybody else was kind of looked at through virtue of a lack in their own will or character as being responsible for their situation. We brought that idea forward with us when we were founded in our country. I wish that everybody from left to right and everywhere in between could stop thinking of homelessness as one more issue of will. If they would stop thinking of the negative things that happen to people as simply a clear-cut choice at some place in that person's life. None of us make choices that will intentionally create misery for us. The fact is that everybody who's homeless started at some point doing what was right. There will always be a certain residual part of the population that simply needs to be cared for by others. And what we have to do is step back from that judgment and work together to come up with solutions that make sense in terms of how we get people out of this desperate circumstance.
One of the outcomes of meeting with Vicki Riddle was my realization that I had to talk to some panhandlers.
The problem with the definition of homelessness is the face that people will attach to it. A man on the corner who's just lazy and doesn't want to get a job.
They love this sign. They ain't ever took my sign. And they do, I got a marker in my pocket, I'll make another one. I'm gonna make money anywhere I go. If I had my damn pit bull with me, I'd have about 2 or 250.
Most of them have animals just to keep company. We are all social beings and we want friends. And if that's the only friend they get, they will keep everything for that dog or that cat.
I make more money out here on the fucking street than I can working out a labor hour every day.
People will tell me, well, you can make a lot of money flying signs and panhandling. It's a very, very old business of asking for alms. And we've been acting as if it's a way that you can really seriously make a living. But the truth is that only a tiny fraction of those people that do it are able to take care of themselves by that. So it's not a worthy way for a person to live. And if a person looks at that and says, well, they want to do that they choose to do that, it isn't really that, it's that they don't have a better thing to offer.
I got tired of damn bullshit. I've had a couple kids jerked away from me, a wife, some shit jerked from me. That hurt, man, that hurt. Down deep inside, too deep down inside. I can do bad by myself. That's the way I look at it.
We have folks who've been out a long time and who have essentially given up hope. Most of the people who have been homeless for years and years didn't wind up homeless and just decide to stay outside. They went and tried to access services, but for whatever reason, the services didn't fit their needs. And so at some point, they gave up trying. And then they came to accommodate themselves to the life that they had on the street.
I'd rather sleep in the bushes over here or something. Mosquitoes eat my ass up or whatever, man, I don't care. Yeah.
But if we can go to them and really build a trust relationship with them where we can have a conversation about, well, is this really where you want to be long term? Or do you want to get back inside? And if you do want to get back inside, you know, what does that look like? What kind of place do you want to live in? Where do you want to live? All of a sudden, things start to turn, and we've had lots of success with people who most folks thought were never going to leave the streets.
The fact is that no one wants to walk around dirty and smelly. People look at you, so they don't want to come to where people are looking like that. They need to clean themselves. They still have some kind of self-esteem left.
I swam all the way from down here to about 4 damn miles up there the other day just because I was dirty, you know. We're in hell right now, we're gonna make it to heaven one of these days. This is hell out here on earth, on the streets.
For every angry panhandler you might encounter in a street situation, there's a homeless single mom and her 2 kids living in their car who would be more than happy to accept help.
There are those that we refer to as voluntarily homeless. That is to say that they have chosen a lifestyle of homelessness for reasons that many of us don't necessarily understand.
Well, what exactly would you like to know? I know they have missions. I'm an older fellow. You have to take all your clothes off in front of 100 guys. You have to take a shower with 100 guys. You put on an old lady's robe. I can't handle it. I don't like to hold a sign. I hate it. But I do like to eat. This is humiliating to hold a sign. You know, I come out here and I stay for a little while. Enough to get 10, 15 bucks, you know, just enough so I don't have to do it on Sunday. I'd worked all my life, like most people. Then I got in a car accident, which broke my hip. Then I got arthritis in it. I lost almost all my money. My wife got some, you know, for the divorce. I had no income at all. Couldn't pay rent anymore. It's like my whole world stopped. I'm not old enough for Social Security. Right now I'm sleeping out, which makes arthritis worse, so it's really hard for me to walk without pain. I've got about a month to go before I get my first disability check, which will get me off the street. I have one other sister who's a doctor, and she's a little above me. Now especially feels way above me, and you just get so humiliated. You just give up.
It's not a question of whether you'll be assaulted, but when you'll be assaulted if you're homeless.
They're not safe. They're not comfortable. There is no toilet or shower or place to store your stuff.
I think that's the hardest part for being a female is, you know, having someone that can kind of be like a big brother to you.
It is dangerous. It's a matter of using common sense.
We're not only fighting against the politicians and the law-abiding citizens, but we're fighting against the homeless too. The people that are crazy out here, the people that are setting fires to our forests. I mean, if you look around,
right here,
I mean,
active arson.
Our homes are being burned up.
Actually, we're not fighting against them. They're making the fight difficult.
Yeah, they're doing what they do.
The basics is don't tell on nobody. Just if it happens and you're not involved in it, just don't say anything.
We have a small, tight-knit group of friends because there's so many people here who are addicted to things and steal. It's the biggest thing in Portland is theft.
It's not like that everywhere though.
We're homeless.
There's certain groups of people that are like that, and those are the people that aren't with Safe Ground. That's why.
Yeah, right down the trail, we've got tweaker camps that all they do is steal and pillage and buy their drugs. We've got drunk camps.
Yeah,
we've got brawlers camps.
You know what?
We don't do that here. We don't allow that here. That's why this is Safe Ground.
Everything I own is in this pack, and it's with me at all times. I sleep on it as a pillow. All pouches and zippers must be facing inward towards me. If anything gets moved, I'll wake up and have time to react. Stuff like that. Every little thing has to be planned or it gets stolen.
I don't know, it's not exactly easy, but it's not as dangerous as people make it seem either.
Just because the addiction followed us outside of the home, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're that much of a boogeyman.
Violent people are violent people, and that's the way they're going to be.
Violent people
it don't matter where they come from.
If you're an asshole in a home, you're going to be an asshole homeless. And it's just as simple as that. You know, and the way that you go about avoiding those people or keeping those people out of your space and out of your aura is the way that you go about it through life, no matter wherever you are.
I've been robbed a few times. It's not what it seems. If I have to fight, I will. I sure hate to because I love people. I've learned not to trust most people. I watch where I go, but I have been jumped and money stolen.
You gotta take care of business. My brother got me for like $90. I got like 2 ounces that don't give a fuck in my system sometimes. I got a fractured spine and shit. I ain't supposed to be fighting. I lay down with one eye open. So when I have my pit bull, I can sleep like a log. At least I'm sleeping with a knife in my hand. You know, I usually got 2 of them.
It's a trip.
Homeless people can respond to making healthy decisions and choices for themselves when they've had safe, private sleep. But here is what homeless people have to sleep in today. Safe overnight shelter, and I've linked it to caseworker support. Each site would have 2 toilets. There's a shower and dressing room module here, a sink, there will be a fountain, and everyone will have a private lockbox next to their sleep-in module. They might be able to go to a job site without their stuff and get a job, or look just like everyone else. They're not hauling their stuff around all day. They've had a shower. They've had good, safe sleep. I recognize that this is not permanent housing, which is the goal to ultimately get homeless people off the street.
As I was leaving Kansas City, I started to get a little desperate. I just left my friend's house last night. I was fully prepared to sleep in my car, but I find myself after 5 days, he offered me to stay on his couch, and without a drop of a hat, I said, yes, please, that would help me so much. I was talking to him this morning. His wife said, hey, can I do laundry for you? Without a drop of a hat, all of a sudden, I'm losing like all decorum of saying, no, that's all right. No, I took that offer. Yes, please, that would help me so much, because washing clothes, it's just so much work. So hard to find a laundromat and pay for a laundromat, and if you got that, it's crazy. I mean, 5 days out, and I'm already kind of jumping at opportunities, and something I never really would have done. I would have been self-sufficient, say, no, I can't do that. But now I'm jumping at stuff. I just got into Memphis last night. It was 90 degrees at 10 o'clock. It was the most humid night I spent. It was like sleeping in a sauna. I'm all sticky and crazy. Trash trucks are just constantly roving around here, banging away. Plus, it's the first night I really had to go to the bathroom. I haven't yet. While in Memphis, the VA was having an event for homeless veterans called the Memphis Stand Down. Veterans are a segment of the homeless population that often goes unrecognized.
I just wish this country would help veterans like me. And many more out there. I see many more veterans out there in wheelchairs that have no place to live, behind dumpsters, in alleys, in doorways of stores. I mean, I see veterans that's been there that were Vietnam vets that are not even getting no help. The society just don't care about us. And I feel like I don't even belong in this country. I feel like I have to go someplace else to get help.
We have to minister to those who need help now. This is the epitome of that. Healthcare, in my opinion, is not a privilege. It is a right, particularly for our veterans, and it's so appropriate that the VA is taking the lead on this. And the Memphis Healthcare Center, I applaud you for making certain that healthcare is available to everybody, not merely those who have a home, who have a zip code, but for those who need healthcare most. This is truly a sign of a caring city.
The more that we looked into the resources for veterans and homeless veterans, we realized that there weren't any resources.
I'm on unemployment. My VA benefits are way past due, and I'm just trying to hold it together long enough to put some of those things in order and go back and pick up my family where I left off.
Homeless veterans are overrepresented in the population. So 1 in 4 homeless adults is a veteran, whereas veterans are only about 10 or 11% of the general population.
We talk about all these statistics, but statistics are made up out of numbers. And if you look at the first four letters in the word numbers, what does it spell? Numb. And you become numb to the fact that you're talking about Mary, Betty, Henry, Edgar. You're talking about real people. So let's not get carried away on the statistics. Let's just start dealing with people with real names and real needs. Thank you so much, and may God bless you all.
We have one family who lives in one of our apartments it's a Marine who came back from Iraq in January of 2009. He had a wife and 4 children, and by September they were living in a shelter. And I don't think that people think that could happen to a Marine.
I'm no different than you. I'm a human being. I bleed red just like you do. I walk just like you do. I breathe like you do, and I eat like you. Now, the only thing I can say about this, please help.
We also see a lot of women now coming back from Iraq who are experiencing homelessness quite quickly. Many of them are single mothers. Many of them have been sexually traumatized while in the military, and I think that this country is really ill prepared to support these women when they're coming back.
We've done our job. We fought for our country. We did things for our country, but what does that make us?
At Jericho, we kind of took on this issue in New York City, and we have about 175 units of housing for homeless veterans in development at this time in the Bronx and in apartments throughout the 5 boroughs as well.
We are getting lined up with an apartment through the VA program that they have for housing. I was in the service back in the 80s, and it should just be a couple more weeks, and we will have our own apartment.
I'm going to stay here with Safe Ground, and we're going to win this war, and we're going to have a place to live for us homeless. And it hurts me, but at least this is a family, God bless, I can't say no more.
Really appreciate your time. Please help the homeless. Please help the disabled vets. Everybody that you can help, just reach down and pick them up, pull them out of the gutter. I love you.
At some point, if you are homeless, you will have legal troubles. Sometimes it can be in the most unexpected ways.
I would prefer to stay in one spot, but the cops won't have it. I'll be in a spot and it'll be a few days, we'll be there and we'll make sure it's clean and we're not pissing right there or taking craps or whatever it may be, We make sure we don't leave it looking like a bunch of bums slept there. But eventually the cops get annoyed, or we sleep in too late one day and the tourists show up and the cops are like, you gotta go. And I'm like, where can we sleep then? He's like, well, over there. I'm like, I can't, that's ODOT. Department of Transportation, they won't let us sleep there. Oh, why don't you sleep over there? Oh, well, Clean and Safe will come and kick us out. What about over there? That's a private building, the security will kick us out. One hand doesn't know what the other's doing, and they don't realize if you're homeless, you can't sleep anywhere. You're not allowed. So it's just moving from spot to spot until we get kicked out. I had that problem in Maryland too, that's why we left. I ran out of spots to sleep.
So the cops will come up, not only give you a ticket, but repo your worldly possessions that resulted in your tent, your sleeping bag, your pillow. And they would hold it as evidence till you went to court.
Well, I'm trained as an attorney. I went to law school with the purpose of learning legal skills that I could use in the movement for social justice. And so what I've found over time is that the skills I thought that would be useful, things like poverty law, health law, are less important than some of the tools that allow me to build housing, dealing with contracts, dealing with tax entities, and dealing with corporations and partnerships. And so by using those tools in a way not to make money for private companies, but really to create housing, to create healthcare and other services for people who need it, they're very useful tools, and they've taken us far.
Let us have a place, safe ground. We'll police it, we'll clean it up. We just need to lay our heads so the next morning we get up fresh, willing, and able to face the day and make it a better day. Isn't that what everybody needs?
Don't let it get to you.
Yeah.
You have to survive out here. You can't have an attitude and be a butthead or whatever, you know, whatever you want to call them.
It's no policing. We can't make any man, woman, child come off of the street. But what we can do is to make sure that there are enough options that should they want to and should they be willing, then the opportunity is there.
My problem started out where I thought I had some morals. You know, like, I'm not gonna work at McDonald's because they're poisoning children with their fatty, disgusting food and so on and so forth. But eventually, that's all there was. There's crappy jobs like that I didn't agree with morally.
I think that, you know, there's a balance between the lessons in which I grew up in as a kid and not steering away from it, while also trying to maintain and survive. There's also been those occasional having to whore myself out type of situations, having to get with a girl who just wasn't that attractive in order to get a place to stay, but I've never prostituted myself for money. Don't think I could, actually.
In Memphis, sleeping in my car was getting to me. The heat was getting to me. The humidity was getting to me. The lack of sleep was getting to me.
In the more humid climates, I've found that my towels don't get dry. So the only way that I can dry them is to tie them on this roof rack and let them blow around when I drive around town, and then they kind of air dry. If it stays wet, it stinks. You can't keep it clean, and you have to go pay for washing. You're paying $1.50 to wash a towel, and also my jeans. I gotta wash my jeans a lot because it's sweaty and humid and gross. I'm half the person I am because I am just wasted away tired. So I have to leave my car on and keep the air conditioning moving just so I can sleep. And I'm doing that in the middle of the day when it's work time. Sleeping in your car is hard. I'm starting to get sick. It's just hot and humid. I don't remember sleeping. I don't remember not sleeping, but I don't remember sleeping. Man, it is crazy. It's messing with me. I kind of walk around in a funk, not wanting to do anything. Just wanting to relax for once, because I've never really been to relax.
When you hand over your keys to a manager, knowing that you're not going somewhere else can be a real downer, because, you know, you've got the depression of losing your roof, but you also have the necessity of having to continue on. So you're not stopping, but you're also not fully participating.
When you become homeless, it's like, it's scary, you feel horrible, you don't want to tell anybody where you're at because you feel embarrassed.
You may be going through any number of stressful incidents in your life that lead you to the streets. And then once you're on the streets, you're having to deal with safety, with the rats and the crows, with the stress of what it's like to not have a place to sleep, existing in a society where you're more or less an outcast.
Is I'm living in a tent and I'm looking for a job and I need something to eat. That'll drive anybody's blood pressure crazy.
It hit my sister. You know, when she passed away a little over a year ago, she took her own life. And she hadn't worked for 3 years. And she, you know, became dependent upon medication, kind of went through the downward cycle of her own depression.
The toughest thing in the world was for me to look at her on a Sunday night and say, babe, here's our home, which is a tent.
You know, there's a myth out there that many people become homeless because they're addicts or because they're mentally ill. We see far more people becoming mentally ill and self-medicating and becoming addicts after they hit the streets.
I really started smoking marijuana like heavily, like self-medicating myself. I was scared to go to anybody and tell them, hey, I screwed up. I don't know what to do. I have these kids that I can't support, and it felt like I'd have been given up.
When you're doing things that you can't even imagine that you'd end up doing, you have a choice whether to let it take you down or to laugh?
Just let it
We
ride.
learn to laugh.
We're walking down the bike trail with everything we own in one of those granny mobiles that you see the old people shopping with in the grocery store, and you're putting it.
And you're thankful for
And
it.
you're thankful for it because, you know, I used to carry that crap.
Yeah.
Now I got the 2 sleeping bags and the pillow and the thing. I've got it down.
You just can't stop pushing. How did I get to this position? Why didn't I keep my eyes open? But you know what? If you dwell on it, you're going to stay there. I did it. You know, I am surviving.
We don't regret becoming and experiencing homelessness, not at all. To be able to say that if it comes right down to it, you know how to survive on the streets, that's a good thing.
And from 97 to 2007, that was a real test of endurance, but I made it, and I met some absolutely wonderful people that I otherwise never would have had the chance to know. So I'm almost grateful. I know that sounds bizarre, but I'm grateful to know these people. Does that make any sense?
I spent my first night in Orlando. I stayed at a friend's house again. I just couldn't sleep in my car anymore. Memphis, the heat in Memphis and me sleeping in the car just destroyed me. It got me really sick, and couches are never so comfortable when you've been sleeping in your car. And air conditioning is amazing. Today I'm going to Sanford, Florida. A person online told me about this city. I can no longer get a hold of that person, so I'm kind of going blindly. So I'm in Sanford, and it seems like it's a small town. One of the locals referred to it as kind of a homestead, where there's industrial area next to homes, next to parks, next to public area, next to shops. So there's no place for the homeless to go, to be pushed to. They're kind of dealing with a lot of homeless and with the idea that they need to do something, but there's not a place to put them. And there is some property, but it's too close to homes, and they don't want homeless next to homes.
In downtown America, there's a big polarization between the interest of economic development and tourism versus the needs of homeless and low-income individuals. Most of the homeless agencies are located in downtown America, and sometimes businesses think that the agencies are part of the problem and that if we simply went away, homeless people would go away. If I was a businessman, I would much rather have homeless folks in a day center where they were getting help than having someone sleeping in my doorway.
One of the local people is pushing, saying, look, they're not bad people, they're just homeless, and we need to help them. It's a community problem. It's like the situation that keeps on giving. If you don't do anything about it, the homeless just keep perpetuating. You run out of places to push them to. But I'm gonna go to a place that feeds the homeless at 5:30. There was a lady there that she feeds the homeless in a park on Fridays at 5:30, and it's just her. She started a year ago, and she feeds about 40 people every time. Faith-based. God told her she needed to do it. Has her kids helping her out, and the people were just, they were ready to talk. Shelters are full. There actually is some transitional stuff, and it's in the works, and there are a lot of people sleeping in the woods. One guy said hundreds, and they have their own camps. Sometimes I guess they were taking them to jail, but how can you take massive hundreds of people to jail? I talked to a business owner, and about half of the community were behind doing something for the homeless. The other half were just, because they were in economic straits themselves, they weren't ready to help. It's just become kind of a critical mass, and I don't think Sanford is alone. Every city I go into, they say, you've come to the right place. Because every city I've visited, you've come to the right place.
In Orlando, I was assisted by the Coalition for the Homeless of Central Florida. They had amassed a fair amount of resources to fulfill the needs of their homeless population. However, it still wasn't enough, and part of the hurdle they faced was getting the public to realize that there was more to homelessness than the guy on the street corner.
In some cities, like you can go to Philadelphia and you will see families actually in the city parks with their children. Most of our families are not on street corners because family and child homelessness is a little bit more invisible, and you'll find people doubled and tripled up, or people living in cheap motels by the week, just barely scraping by and using all their money to keep their family in a motel room.
I was on the streets, but I stayed in hotels. And every cent I has had and a little bit I saved, I was using it. It was going, and then the food became a problem because I didn't have enough to pay for the hotels, to take care of my son properly. It was hard to not have it, and then look at my son every day, and he's asking me questions, and you want to know where his bedroom is, where his own apartment is, where his house. To sit there and tell him that Dad can't do this, Dad can't do that, it took a lot away from me. But I just never gave up. I fought. I just never gave up because of him.
I've been to where me and my children have had to sleep in cars, and me and my children had to go in restaurants and pretend like we had the money to go eat. And we would eat, and we wouldn't have the money to pay, and it just gets to a point where when you're a mom and you have 2 kids and no help, I've even considered suicide, but I didn't want to tell anybody because I didn't want to get put in some kind of mental hospital.
There was a t-shirt generated several years ago, and it said that the average homeless person is 9 years of age. Did you know?
Most of my life I have been homeless since I was 5 until I was 21. I know I slept in abandoned buildings, apartments, vans, parks.
My kids have grown up so fast because of it.
Do you need to take a break?
Give me a second.
Sure.
She adjusted very well to the shelter.
Yeah, she didn't want to leave.
She matter of fact, when it was our time to leave, she wanted to live at the shelter because she made friends there. She liked the staff members there, but she's okay now.
And it was very difficult to get both of them to school. I chose a motel right in between the 2 schools. Well, it was okay to get one to school, but I didn't have time to go back and get the other one to school. This next year, they will be in a new school.
I hate going to new school.
When I first got here, I was in the van. They asked me, are these my children? What are you doing with them? How am I taking care of them? How would you be able to take care of these kids? Where's the mother? Why is the mother not involved? And people just kind of, from the outside looking in, they just think that because I have them, the mother has to be either gone or dead, which is not the case. Mothers are always the one to take care of the kids. Don't nobody expect for us to do this. Don't expect for fathers, especially of my age and my ethnicity, to take care of not 1, 2, I'm taking care of 3 children. I had to go to court, prove that they was mine, prove that I was the father, and all this running around just to get benefits, just to take care of my kids.
So we very overprotective. We like lions when it comes to our kids. And you should see us around here. We don't like people walking up to them. It's not like we're trying to treat anybody different. It's just the fact that we're so overprotective because we don't want them to get sick. We don't want them to come up with a rash, or it's just scary, the thought of something happening.
There's 10,000
10,000 homeless children in Los Angeles County. Out of those 10,000, 2,000 or 3,000 of those children are between the ages of 12 and 17. Most of them are from abusive homes, or a lot of them are from broken homes, sexually abused, just going through a lot of really difficult things. And the misconception is that everyone's either on drugs or something of that nature. Drugs actually only makes up about 15 to 20% of why most people are homeless. There's 13 children that die every day of exposure. That's children that's exposed out to the elements. Most shelters, they don't accept between the ages of 12 to 17 because they're considered liabilities. You name it, we do what we can to help the youth out so they can become productive members of society.
To all those little kids sitting at home watching this, 13, 14, 12, 16, 17, your mom and daddy ground you for a couple weeks. Don't come running outside and be like, I'm gonna be homeless, it's the cool thing. Because once you're out here, you're pretty much stuck without mommy and daddy's help. So stay at home and go to school. Like, it's for real. It's no life for you kids. It's no life at all.
As I left Florida, I realized that if you fell down, your well-being depended on others. And if you didn't have others, getting up just became epic.
My mother pays for my cell phone bill and my health insurance, and she's been doing so for the past year and some change. She's only able to do so much, and that's pretty much what she's been able to do. There's been a few times where I just couldn't find anywhere to stay, really didn't want to sleep in the car, so I would drive to Mom's house and stay there for a couple days. She doesn't really know my situation, couldn't allow that to happen. My mom would go nuts, you know? Can't allow that for moms, because, man, she's invested so much in me, you know? And I'm lucky enough to have her to be able to do that.
During part of this time, my mom and I were not on speaking terms. She didn't want me to have my daughter. She wanted me to give her up. And I couldn't.
I have quite a few brothers and sisters, but your family members have a tendency to try to take advantage of your situation. So I chose to come to the shelter opposed to going through that over and over again.
The same things we were going through as far as the job loss and everything, that was happening with our families also. So I felt that they would take it in, even though they were willing, but they might be put in the same situation that we were in.
So we let our family be. Once in a great while, I would contact my mother because I knew she was praying for us, etc., and I wanted to let her know I was okay. My children, last thing I wanted was for them to be burdened.
I made friends with a wonderful big African-American man because I trusted him, and we were outside of a store called Old Navy when I would get there earlier in the evening than he would, and when he would arrive, I would say, honey, you're home. And I still enjoy seeing him. It's been a while, but just I felt safe with him.
When I met with Michael Stoops, it happened to be the day he was handing out Street Sense newspaper, which is a paper the homeless sell to the public in order to generate some money to help them with day-to-day survival.
This puts money in our pocket immediately, which enables us to buy a bus ticket, buy a rail ticket to get back to the shelter, buy a cup of coffee, buy laundry detergent, or go to the laundromat. In my case, buy feminine hygiene products, which food stamps doesn't cover.
Michael introduced me to Eric Sheptalk, a local homeless activist who had been working to get homeless people into jobs that would pay them a living wage in Washington, D.C.
March 5th of 2009, Michelle Obama visited the homeless at Miriam's Kitchen in Northwest D.C. And there was a homeless man with the camera phone who took a picture of Michelle, and someone else got a picture of him with the camera phone, and that picture is floating around the web now, and people are weighing in and saying, well, how can a homeless person afford a camera phone? There's actually a very big difference in how much it costs to have a cell phone or a camera phone and how much it costs to pay rent per month, but folk don't see that. The Department of Labor is working with the homeless advocates at Streets, which is striving to reach, educate, and transform society, and we're actually working on creating job training for the homeless. We can train the homeless to work at jobs where they'll make at least $12 an hour, which is about half of what it takes to live in D.C. if you work full-time. That kind of forces you to marry, so you're gonna have to get a roommate. You can't really make it on your own in D.C. with $12 an hour. And then the other part of that is if you move to the suburbs, then the cost of going to and fro on public transportation is so high these days that what you save in rent, you end up paying in transportation costs.
Economics just kept creeping back into homelessness.
I will be getting minimum wage for a job that required them to do a $400 background check, and it's part-time too. It's not even full-time. I'm not going to be able to afford a place or even be a roommate with somebody at minimum wage.
And if you work a 40-hour work week, whether you're a janitor, whether you're a rocket scientist, you should be able to afford a roof over your head. Even if it's just a room with a bed and a key, and you have to share a bathroom and share a kitchen.
I didn't have enough rent because on aid, I only got $530, and the rent was like $700 and something.
There are people like me that hate being on welfare, that hate having to get help to raise their family. And I think that's a big misconception among America, is that people who are on welfare always want to stay on welfare.
I would say half of homeless individuals in this country, and there's been no scientific study, but I would say that half just need a job, a cheap apartment, health care, and those folks can solve their own situation.
And I could take anything as far as $10, $11 an hour, and I can work that to death, because I'm that type of person.
I'm 57. Pretty much the only way that I'll probably end up getting a job is through knowing someone. This is a young man's world. When the job fairs, they don't tell you that you're too old, because that's against the law to tell a person that.
And sometimes working many jobs, they can't really take care of their children, and childcare costs a great deal of money, and transit costs a lot of money.
When I got my place, finding help to get groceries, finding help to get to the church, I didn't always have money for the bus, because I'm not just paying for me, I have to pay for the other two.
Spent the night in New York. Pretty quiet night. Now I just got to figure out how to get down to 29th and 8th Avenue with my big bag. I think I'm going to do it by a train.
By the time I hit New York, even though I was on a budget and I was without a home, I just wanted to spend my money on something that would make me feel good.
Everybody really wants to work, they want to be productive, they want to have a relationship, they want to have families, they want to have their own home.
When I grew up, you were told a man takes care of his own. You work a job and you take care of your own. If someone had told me at this age that I would be living in a homeless shelter, I would have scoffed at it. It's not something that I'm proud of, but it's not something that I'm ashamed of either.
It's a constant 24/7 struggle to determine what is your priority of the day. Do I eat? Do I stay out of the heat? Do I get cleaned up? Do I feed myself? Do I pray to the Lord to help me rise above this 24/7? Yes, I do that.
We're stressing over how we're going to get a birthday present to one of our grandkids.
I certainly am not the type to take a handout. I guess my pride gets in the way. In some cases, I'd rather just be hungry. I'd rather spend the money that I have in my pocket for a pack of smokes than some food.
I do nothing for cash. Yeah, I don't ask for spare change or anything. That's another thing. It's a moral dilemma where I could sit out with a sign, but there's so many people doing that already, and everybody's hurting for cash, people with jobs and houses. You're in the same boat. I mean, you might give $1 to one street kid, but you're gonna walk 10 feet and see another one with a sign. There's only so much anybody can do, So I don't ask for spare change. I don't ask for anything from anybody except maybe occasional cigarette. So I just depend on random generosity so far.
Using the restroom and hygiene.
Toilet paper.
Toilet paper. Brushing your teeth on a daily basis.
Laying on a pad is big.
Yeah, laying on a pad. You know, we upgraded from the ground to a $5 pool air mattress because her hips were hurting. How can you go to a job interview when you have to pick a number for laundry, lottery, for shower, and you don't even know you have $2.50 to get one way on a bus? After you're getting beat up every day, you gotta wait in line to get lunch. You gotta wait in line to get your laundry number drawn if you think you can only get 9 pieces and it doesn't count socks or underwear. And you've not had a shower for 4 days and you didn't get there in time because you're walking 1.5 miles, pulling everything you own on a Monday morning, foggy as heck, tired as heck because you slept on the ground that's cold. And you gotta get to the thing and all of a sudden, oh, you're number 11 and we're only giving out 10 showers today. Come on, dude. You know, how can I go look for a job when I smell like yesterday 3 days ago?
Just stayed the night in a shelter in Springfield, Massachusetts. And I slept on a cot, and there was a metal bar right in the middle of my back. And I thought, wow, this is a comfortable sleep for some guys, and they're appreciative of this. I too was appreciative, but it was pretty painful. And I slept in a big room with probably 100 guys, pretty quiet, only a couple people yelling out, people having nightmares, people snoring. There's only one shower facility for that room that I knew of, and I just happened to wake up at 5 and ask about showers, and I did not know the system. And it's just the simple things that we take for granted that are so difficult when you don't have a home. The night manager of the facility told me that because of the living wage issue, people with full-time jobs slept at the shelter so they could save what money they did make for clothes, food, and small luxuries.
It was beautiful, and there was so many different circumstances that if we hadn't been homeless, we would have never experienced. And everything from being out at what they call Sherwood Forest, out by the river, seeing a giant great horned owl and a couple giant vultures that were standing right behind us. And
yeah, and I'm yelling, we're not dead yet. We just haven't had a shower in 4 days. And they're going,
they pulled up right behind us.
Right behind us.
They were checking out our campsite. But the people.
Yeah, the people.
Then again, just as you realize, some things that you need, some things
you don't.
You know.
And the things you need, you will go out and do whatever possible to get them.
So we went from having a tent to having our sleeping bags on the floor of our own place. Grandkids have come over and spent the night at our place, from having nothing to having our grandkid. You know, I used to say, God, you know, the thing I want is just us to be credible, respectable, and provide for our kids and our grandkids.
That was our goal, my goal was to help get my family back into place, a roof over their head, food in their stomach, and we accomplished that together. We put our minds together, we can do anything we need to do, and that's what we've done. And that's my best friend right there, and she was my strong point.
So this is my first morning in Chicago, and I couch surfed with a guy I went to grad school with. Thank you very much. It's getting tough. I miss my wife, but see if I can get it done. It's getting kind of hard. You can hear the L passing. I say it's like the ocean.
It's like obstacle course. You get over one obstacle, there's another obstacle, And that obstacle might be bigger and badder than the last obstacle. So, you know, an obstacle course is set up for failure, and that's all life is. And then you can take different routes, different roads, it's easier than others. So it's just all this stuff, you know, so it's like mountain of problems that you had to climb and you had to overcome, and I'm like right here. But I'm climbing slowly but surely. Yeah, you can have your 2-year, 5-year, 10-year plans. But I think right now, when you're in this stage, you have to have a daily plan, a weekly plan, you know, because all that stuff, everything else is just so high up, and it's like being a baby. I'm still a baby in my adult life, so I'm taking baby steps. You know, I can admit that. I'm still a baby. Even though I'm 24 years old, I'm still learning. So I try to take things day by day, week by week. So the goals down here, the goals are different from up here, because goals down here is try to get you up out of here. Just because we're down here doesn't mean that we're meant to stay down here. Even though the system is set up for failure, it's also set up for failure if you're up here too. So it really doesn't matter where you're at, it all goes in a circle. Don't take it for granted, because there's somebody out there that wants it better than you want it. A flood could come down and wash your whole home away. All those people had it. Now they're here, and shelters all across the country. Don't look down on the ones that are below you, because you could be down there faster than you could say no. You know what I'm saying? You could be down there, you could be down here with us, but you never know. Anything can happen.
It's funny, I'm in my friend's apartment and I just want someplace to be. After moving around so much, I have things to do, but I just am so appreciative of a place to be. As I left Chicago on my way to Portland, I had time to think about the variety of people who are out here without a home.
To me, it's like one thing to be homeless, it's one thing to act homeless. I could be homeless, but I don't want to act it. When I'm on the streets and I'm going somewhere and you see the guy on the corner in a wheelchair with one leg, about 70, 80 years old, and I think to myself, like, how? How is that even possible? Being homeless, you can pick up bad habits, but I try not to. I don't like to ask for anything. So I'm not finna be on the corner asking for change. You know, I need more than just change. I don't want to live off benefits. And I think that's another thing that people need to understand. It's not just about money. Money is not going to keep you anywhere. People like to think money makes the world go round, and to me it doesn't. It's all about your faith in God. You know, that's what keeps me going. That's what motivates me.
The drive from Chicago to Portland took 3 days. Along that drive, my mind tried to digest everything I had experienced so far. But my body also started to break down, and it became this high-minded, low-browed journey into oddity.
I just got up and spent the night in, I can't remember where I am, and I'm in the back of my car. And I thought it would be a good time to have the talk. Sorry, I'm all greasy and crazy looking. So now it looks kind of disturbing, but I miss my wife. And there's a adult side to a couple, and I have been out on the road. And there's no place I can take care of any urge that I have. And I miss my wife. I miss my wife. Sometimes it's a distraction. And I can't do anything about it, because I don't want to get arrested and I don't want to be a pervert.
Speaking of perverts, or more specifically registered sex offenders, one of the homeless advocates I spoke with said this group was the gorilla in the room when it came to the homeless population. Sex offenders are getting pushed out of communities and onto the streets, where they cannot stay 1,000 feet from a homeless child while they are both crouched underneath the same bridge some rainy night. In Sanford, a man wanted to talk with me, but a homeless woman ran him off, calling him a pervert, saying, "I know what you did." It's not just sex offenders that are put out onto the streets. If you have been to prison, trying to re-enter the outside world and trying to be self-sufficient can be anywhere from difficult to impossible.
Many people don't have a feeling as if when they get out they have a place to go or a job or something where they can take care of themselves. It's inexcusable for us to say, well, this person doesn't have a right to do this because they did something that was against the law. The fact of the matter is that's the whole point of it, is that once you're done with your time and you're released, that you are just the same as anybody else. You can vote, you can do all the things that any other citizen can do.
I went to prison from 2007 to 2009. And in there I got to do a lot of self-perception where I was actually alone on my own for the first time. And I got cleaned out and I got my mind right. To be a good provider for my family, I had to learn how to love me first. And it took me going there to that place. But as I was there, I just realized that the whole time I was living my life as a little boy trapped inside a man's body with my decision process. So my decisions and what I was doing got me here. When I went in there, I didn't know when I was going to see my kids again. Half of my kids were in foster care. The other half were with my wife. She's addicted to cocaine. I didn't know when I was going to see them again, but when I gave them it all to God, I knew that this peace came over me, everything's going to be all right. My focus was getting me together so I could be a better man for my children and for me. It just depends on the individual, I think. It just depends on that, because I could blame the system. It's easy to blame everything. I was molested at a young age. I didn't have a father. My stepdad was an alcoholic. He abused my mother. I could blame everything. But when are you going to take responsibility as an individual and as a man and say enough is enough and quit blaming and just step up to the plate?
So I was just sleeping in the back of my car and I just climbed to the front. I do it in the dark. Most of the time, it's less conspicuous.
Leaving Salt Lake City was hard, not only because it was my third straight day of travel, but because people had wanted me to document the homeless situation there as well. I had simply run out of time. Other cities that people told me I had to visit were Phoenix, Arizona, Houston, Texas, Seattle, Washington, Providence, Rhode Island, Atlanta, Georgia, and the list goes on.
My name is Israel Baer, and I'm the executive director of Street Roots, a street newspaper in Portland, Oregon. Homelessness in Portland, Oregon is much like homelessness in any urban environment. We have around 16,000 people that experience homelessness in a given year. On any given night, around 2,000 to 3,000 people sleeping outdoors. And over the last 2 years of the recession, we've seen those numbers skyrocket. At the same time, we've seen resources decline. So
most of the places I applied to in Maryland required a physical address. They wouldn't settle for a P.O. box. Plus you have to pay for that too. I mean, like I've been looking on Craigslist for odd jobs that don't require ID because I can't get a job with a Maryland ID here. They could be out in Beaverton or Hillsborough or wherever. I don't even have $5 to get out to Hillsborough. I have no way to start the income rolling. I have no way to get anywhere. I have to stay here where all the feeds are, but there's no jobs here.
In my situation, I don't have ID, social security card, or a birth certificate because those were all stolen from me when I first got down here. Yeah, and it was by somebody I supposedly could have trusted. And he actually wasn't homeless, he was a housey.
I mean, try applying for a job when you can't list a number, you can't list an address to get hired. They won't hire you if they know you're homeless. So it's all about hiding the fact that you're homeless. If you're not able to do that, once you're dirty and stinky and you appear homeless, you're kind of screwed.
I went out last night just talking to people, and man, there's a lot of, that guy's not deserving, I'm not getting this, that guy's not worth it. Why is he getting that service? He's this and this and this, and I'm this. And when you don't have anything and someone else is getting service, it kind of upsets you. There are different people out here with way different backgrounds, and
different needs.
When we take a moment in time and look at all the people who are outside and try to characterize the different populations of people who are homeless, the folks who are outside, regardless of how different they may appear, they're people who struggle, have emotions, have dreams and ambitions, and as you push back in their personal timeline, as you start to hear their story, you start to find where the similarities are to your own experience, and what went right for you at a particular moment in time that didn't go right for them.
Facing this crisis and dealing with this crisis is going to take a local solution to a national problem.
There need to be real resources put into addressing homelessness and ending homelessness and preventing homelessness in the first place. It can actually cost quite a bit less money to give somebody the kind of care that Jericho gives, as opposed to putting them in a temporary shelter, having them be on the streets again, being in hospitals, being in jail and prison. It's actually much cheaper, and it's about shifting resources, and that's always politically difficult, but it needs to be done.
If you combine a real financial investment with some good strategies, and invest as much autonomy and responsibility in the folks who are outside themselves as you can and they're able to take, I think we can get on top of this. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the people go inside. I'm seeing the strategies work. I'm seeing us stretch the dollars we have further and succeed better with the money we have.
So I'm in San Francisco, and I just met with an organization, and they were saying that the poor can't move anywhere, so actually the poor are local San Franciscans, and they're homeless, and which is interesting because I'm running out of money, and it cost me $6 to get into San Francisco on the Bay Bridge and $7 for parking, for all-day parking, and I don't have enough money to go anywhere else to park. Really, I really got to watch it, so I'm stuck where I'm at.
Now, let me be clear. There are some people that have, out of bad choices, ended up homeless. And out of those bad choices, now they've gotten stuck. And they don't see a way out. It's a responsibility for us, we the people, to provide those options.
I just had my first night in San Francisco. I ended up going to South San Francisco to find a place to park. I am cold. I really got to go to the bathroom and there's no place, so I'm gonna try this peeing in a bottle thing. I feel so much better. Yesterday, in the parking lot where I was, it was just a constant flow of people coming in to either pee behind a car or take a hit of drugs behind a car. After a while, part of me just thought, I just don't want to be around this. I just gotta get away. And then another part of me thought, well, you don't have another $7 to pay for parking. Later that day, all I had left was gas money to get home. I had no choice. I could either scavenge in San Francisco or drive inland to Sacramento, where I had family who would feed me. I chose the latter. I could have been stuck for real. It just didn't seem like a good choice.
You just have to say, I need help. It's not hard. You got to bite the bullet sometime and just get that stuff out of the way and realize you need help.
What we have to remember, and I say we because I'm included in this too, is the people helping us did not create our situation, but what they do have something to do with is offering us a way out.
Because without that homeless shelter,
I don't know where
we'd be.
There's good in everybody. And just because you're homeless does not make you a bad person.
They're not homeless people, they're people who happen to be homeless.
It sneaks up on some people. Don't think you'll never land on a street. Well, you still got a roof over your head. You can't just feel secure.
When you see a homeless person on the street, it's important to remember that it could be you in a year, it could be you in a month. It doesn't matter who you are, what your deal is, what you like to do. It doesn't matter. Anybody can be homeless. And I'm one of those people. I'm not mentally unstable, I'm not a drug addict. But I'm here, and I'm stuck. And if you're a normal person and you get stuck here, you're gonna be there for a long time. I guarantee it.
I'm Matt, and I just got recently kicked out of my grandfather's house. I'm out here staying with my father, Eric, and he's an elder of the Safe Ground Camp. Oh, yeah. Well, this is something my dad wrote. You never get to sleep, especially at night. You can never tell when you may have to fight. You limit yourself to what fits on your back, because if you leave it behind, it will be sold for a sack. We struggle every day just to survive. When the sun breaks through, you thank God you're alive. People disappear without a trace. Others come back broken with a black and blue face. We struggle every day searching for safe ground. But we're here and we're there, but it's not around. I can't say it's been easy because it seems so far away. Living this life day after day, I'm really not sure what God has in store for me here, but I hope there's a roof and a whole lot of beer. Some call us homeless, some down our luck, some call us bums and throw us a buck. Some think this is something we want in our lives, protecting our families and sleeping with knives. You call us lazy, I call it life. Working 24/7, protecting my wife. Sure, people die, where do they not? It's what you die for, not what you got.